Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome, everyone. You are now tuned into another amazing edition of Sanya on Air. I'm your host, Sanya Hudson-Payne. But before we get started with another amazing guest, I just want to do some quick housekeeping. Make sure that you tune in to every Sanya on Air show. You can catch it streaming on major platforms, on iTunes, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Buzzsprout. I am so excited to be joined by today's guest. We have none other than Attika J. Torrence. If you don't know who this brother is, trust me, after this conversation, you will do your research because you want to know more. Attika Torrence is a two-time Emmy Nominated Producer. He is an award-winning director, an actor, a screenplay writer, and guess what he's adding to his portfolio? Novelist. We're going to unpack all of his great work because he's been in this industry for quite some time. So without any further ado, let's bring Attika to Sanya on Air. Hey Attika, how are you?
What up, Sanya? I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing amazing. You know, I can't complain. You know, you just gotta push forward. That's all we can do.
I know, I get it.
You get it. So, you know, I want to get started because I didn't even know, and I've known you for quite some time. We've known each other since college, if in case most of you don't know, but you've been in this business for 20 years. So let's unpack that a little bit. How did you get started in the filmmaking industry?
I got started in a filmmaking industry because when I left Westbury, I took some time off, and when I went back to school, I decided to go back for acting. And when I wanted to go to school for acting, I realized while I was taking acting courses that, you know, no one's really going to hire me right away because no one knows me. So I needed to take courses in directing, and so I can direct myself in the film. And as I take directing courses, I realized that nobody's really going to hire me as a director because I directed anything, so I need to learn how to start writing. So I started taking up more writing courses, and the year I graduated, while I was in school, I was writing all of my screenplays and stuff. Even for my assignments weren't done just as assignments. They were done basically as a litmus test for me to start workshopping my own work. So when I graduated, the first movie I ever made outside of my student films, my student projects, I wrote, directed, and starred in a movie called Brotherly Love with about 13 of New York's top underground comedians at the time that have since blown up. My co-star and co-writer was Talent Harris, who's a pretty popular comedian. Donnell Rollins was in it. God bless Todd Lynn. It was in it. He's acquired a lot of fame. Will Sylvance, Tony Roberts. We had everybody who was popping in New York City at that time in the underground circuit that was right ready to blow. So that's how my filmmaking career got started.
I love it. But, you know, I love that you mentioned such early on in your career, you decided to lead your own narrative. And a lot of people don't explore that route. They believe that if they kind of piggyback on someone else's dream, on someone else's zest, that will too make them popular and, you know, thrust them into this world of celebritydom. So I'm so happy that you decided to cultivate and lead your own narrative. But what's also equally impressive is that you push boundaries, Attika. You push so many boundaries, and that is evident in your last film, Rest in Power, the Trayvon Martin Story, which you were an executive producer, and you received 2 Emmy nominations. So let me give you an applause for that. So talk about that.
Well, on that one, I was a producer. I wasn't the executive producer, but I was actually hands-on producer on the ground. I was also, it's not credited, but I was also a second unit director on some episodes where the director stayed in New York and I went down and I made sure that We got the shots creatively and, artistically as we could, as well as, I managed some interviews, some of the interviews that they had while the directors were there. But that job came about. It's funny because initially when it was offered to me, it was offered to me as a field producer. And I didn't want to be a field producer, but it was an important job. So even though it was an important job, I had to really consider whether or not I wanted to be on it. Now, the team that did that job, I had worked with them previously on Time, the Khalif Browder story. We worked on the Khalif Browder story in a different capacity. So they came to me this time and said, we would like you to be a field producer. So I gave it some thought, and initially I was a little reluctant or ambivalent, but the story has to be told, and the story is going to be told whether you're in the room or not. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know what? I decided to jump at the opportunity, and I went down because there's a hierarchy in producers, and a field producer is not as high as a producer. So initially I was like, I'm not sure. I'm glad I took it, because as soon as I got on board, I recognized where they were deficient in some places, and they recognized my value as it related to their deficiencies. And quickly I got boosted to co-producer and then producer. And, when the Emmy nominations came around, and, I was taking it like, it ain't really a big deal until you win an Emmy. I'm thinking an Emmy award-winning producer is the big deal. Emmy nominated is like whatever, right? So I've come to find out. I've come to find out, because my thing is always, if you don't take the gold home, it's the nomination, right? But I've come to realize the magnitude of the accolade itself now, and I'm honored. But working alongside the team at Cinemart, the same team again that did and I also worked on the Hulu Fire Fraud, not the Netflix joint, but the Hulu joint, the Fire Fraud. I worked on them with Time, the Khalif Browder story, and I worked on them with Rest in Power. But even being close to Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin and Ben Crump, and working with the team and getting to know the family, getting to understand all of the lies that was told and all of the spin that was done just to create an idea about this young man and about a system that many people don't really understand. And it was extremely eye-opening. A lot of it I knew already, but there was some of it that I didn't know, and I consider myself somewhat conscious. So if I didn't know, I know the majority of people didn't know.
Right.
And so that was really deep, and I'm honored that forever in life, forever in perpetuity, my name is attached to that project, and it doesn't hurt that I'm also a 2-time Emmy nominated producer.
Yes. So I just want to capture that for a moment, because there are so many people in the business. We don't take time to acknowledge the great work that we've done. Mm-hmm. So how did you get to the point where you started to acknowledge that being nominated for 2 Emmys was a big deal?
Well, other people started speaking about it. Other people started talking about it. There were times, where I'd be in rooms and like we'd be talking about certain stuff, and other people who I consider accredited, would speak about my accolades, whether it was on a panel, whether it was as I was introduced to people. I also created and produced, along with Jamie Hector, the Brooklyn Film Arts and Media Conference that we do in Brooklyn. It got pushed back this year because of COVID, but as I'm sitting in the room with a lot of my people that I work with that came on board to rock with me on, I'm thinking about hosts and panelists for panel discussions and stuff, and they're like, Attika, you're the panelist. Like, I'm going to interview you. And I'm like, we need to get someone bigger. They was like, nah, like, that's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when other people started recognizing it, and it made me stop for a minute, because again, as we're working in this industry, it's like, you put your head down, you lace up your boots, and you plow forward. even as you're on the red carpet at your own premiere, people are asking you what you got next. You know what I'm saying? It's never about the moment, right? So experience will allow you to enjoy the moment. When you're inexperienced, it's like the inexperienced squirrel want to eat all the nuts they find. The experienced squirrel is going to bury them because they know winter's coming. You know what I'm saying? Like the experienced filmmaker, actor, director, producer, radio host, whatever, you get to enjoy the moment. You know, and I wasn't enjoying the moment, and other people made me stop and smell the coffee, and they honored my accolades before I was able to appreciate them myself.
Well, let me just capture that for a second, because you're speaking about your intellectual network, which also to me equates into your social capital. And it's so important that you have people in your social intellectual capital and circle who can tell you when you're doing great things, because sometimes you don't see it. So I'm glad that you mentioned how you're surrounding yourself with people in your network who can say, Attika, you've done great things. Attika, you are the panel. Attika, you are the moderator. So I'm glad that you kind of captured that moment, that it is so important to have those type of people in your network, because they totally change your optics. Now, something that I want to talk about, because I'm a firm believer in speaking into existence, and we're always saying, say their name. So I'm just going to mention Eric Garner. I'm going to mention Breonna Taylor. I'm going to mention Ahmaud Arbery. I'm going to mention George Floyd. I'm going to mention Tamir Rice. I'm going to mention Michael Brown. I'm going to mention Philando Castile. Now, as a filmmaker, do you feel that you have a social responsibility, since you've already done Rest in Power, the Trayvon Martin Story? Do you also feel that you have a social responsibility to bring these stories to life?
I do not feel I have a social responsibility to bring these stories to life. I feel we got to be real careful with how some of these stories are told. I do feel a social responsibility to telling the truth as I see it. And it just so happens that my truth is in line with some of these stories. But I don't feel, as a filmmaker, as an artist, responsible, because as an artist, if you really, really appreciate and accept your art, then you realize it's not yours. You're just a vessel through which the art flows. And if the art doesn't come to me to tell a story, then I'm not going to tell that story, because at that point it's difficult to traverse that terrain, and it's difficult to do it justice. You know, my first film was Brotherly Love. The movie opened up with Donnell Rawlins playing a guy named Emmett Diallo, and we mixed Emmett Till and Amadou Diallo. So we're saying that this started way back when, and it's a comedy, mind you. The movie is a comedy. The cops pulled up on him and they started shooting him. We cut to another scene, right? The comedy movie starts. Totally, this has nothing to do with the movie at all. Midway through it, we cut to it again. They're still shooting him, right? The movie's still going. And then at the end of the movie, while credits are rolling, we cut to them still shooting him throughout the entire movie. So the play on that was basically saying, while everybody's going along with their day and you're enjoying a comedy and life is good, this man was being shot for a long time. Yeah. And then we made the correlation between what happened to Emmett Till and what happened to Amadou Diallo. You know, but I did that while creating a film that was a comedy. You know what I'm saying? The guy Donnell Rawlins, who plays Ashley Larry, is the dude who played that role, right? So that was my way of raising my fists in making a comedy. So even with some of my other films, and one that I'm in development now, the one that got pushed back from due to the pandemic, we hope that we can be up and running in September. But that one is a specific play on today's climate, which I wanted to do 5 or 6 years ago. And had I done it 5 or 6 years ago, I'd have been the almighty genius, you know what I'm saying? But then it would have been, it was a premonition. But I'm still going to do the film, even though the climate that I discussed in the film is happening today. I feel like I'm compelled to tell the stories that are true to me. But the work that as an artist. It just so happens that what we're dealing with as a people is what's really true to me. So I'm going to tell the story the best way I know how, but I can't hold every artist to that, and you fight the best way you know how to fight, Sanya.
Right.
And in the army, you got people who just make food and feed the soldiers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not holding a gun going to shoot. You fight the best way you know how to fight. If you're a comedian going to an army base to make the people feel good just for 1 hour, so they can have the energy and the adrenaline to get back out there and fight. If you're a mother and you get to call your son and give them a soothing voice, you fight the best way you know how to fight. And as an artist, as a writer, as a director, as a filmmaker, I do hold true to these stories. So it just so happens that I'm going to tell the stories the best way I know how. But in doing so, when you feel the need to tell these stories, you got to be careful, because what you actually start doing sometimes, if it's not germane, if it's not true to your soul, then what you start doing is actually marketing Black Death. And you don't want to be a tool in marketing Black Death. And you got to be real specific with that, because a parent company will throw you some money to do the Breonna Taylor story, knowing that this is the story. This is not the real story we're going to give you. Another parent company will give you money to do the George Floyd story, but we're going to make you tell this story. You got to be careful, because when you tell our stories, you can't tell them from a glorifying perspective. You got to tell them from a therapeutic perspective, so we all can grow from watching it. And you got to be careful with that, and if it's not true to your soul, and you can tell when the filmmaker is not true to this story, you can tell. And you got to be careful with that.
How can you tell? How can you tell when a filmmaker isn't true to the story?
Because the story doesn't connect with the person that they're telling the story about. And if you know anything about the person, then the story doesn't connect to the viewer. Like, I honestly feel like, I'm not really a fan of bad mouthing other filmmakers, but when if you take a story like, for instance, what's an example? Ali, for an example. I don't think Michael Mann, I don't think the director of Ali idolized Ali. I don't think he was a huge fan of Muhammad Ali. And I think it showed in how he chose to tell the story. And I think if that same story was told by someone who really understood the impact of Muhammad Ali on Black people, they would have probably shown the scene when he came home from winning a gold medal, and he walked into a restaurant and they told him he can't eat in that restaurant. So he took his gold medal and threw it in the lake, in the river. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many things that go into the story. Like, even like, I think when Disney made the Jackie Robinson story, they didn't make him the revolutionary that he would have been made into if someone else that appreciates the revolutionary side would have told. See, we're multifaceted as people. You know what I'm saying? So there's someone that can tell the Attika J Torrence story, and it can be like, hey, this guy's a great guy. He went to college. He went to, he started working in film business 2 times. And then there's someone else that can tell my story and be like, yo, Attika ain't take no shit. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be careful which stories we tell. And then, like, somebody can tell a story about you, Sanya, that can be true. But the people who know you'll be like, yeah, but that ain't it, though. That they missing something.
Right. But, I'm really listening intently to everything that you're saying. And, although you feel that you don't have a social responsibility, and it made me think that, a social responsibility can be some sort of forcefulness upon you. But to me, it seems as if it's innate, because you also shifted paradigms, because you are so authentic in your storytelling and wanting to be truthful and making sure that you aren't just making stories about Black folks or the Black experience that is palatable, but is also authentic and true. So, for me, it's not you have a social responsibility. You're doing the work because it's innately in you. Before I start every single show, Attika, I say a prayer and I ask God to use me, because this isn't about me. I want God to deliver whatever message to every single listener and every single viewer, and I ask that he uses me. So it seems as if, it's innately in you, and I once again applaud you for using your stories and being bold and being authentic in these stories. Now, you've also mentioned that, two-time Emmy nominated. I told you that I think that is absolutely amazing. And all of these projects that you've been a part of. Now, after you received the 2 Emmy nominations, I'm sure that you received plenty of phone calls about projects. Talk about that. Were there any projects that really piqued your interest, and some projects where you said, what the hell is this?
So when you get nominated for Emmy, the people who don't really know the business thinks that your ticket is punched and your number is called. But that's not really the case. Like, you still out here working. Chances are, by the time y'all hear about the Emmy nominations, it's a year or 2, maybe even 3 removed from the project itself, from when you did the project, right? Before I got nominated for the Emmys, I was BET did a reality show on me about making a film in 48 hours, and it was a competition-based show, and I won that show. Actually, the person who I competed against, Stacey Holman, was at the Emmys nominated for her documentary that she did on HBCUs as well. And it's interesting because you do the work and then people start coming to you. So when that happened with me, when I won the BET competition, because that was on television, people saw it, right? The same thing happened when I won the Emmy. People are coming, when we was nominated for the Emmy, people start coming to you with projects. And some of it is just trash. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, people are asking you to produce reality shows about nonsense and stuff. And I really don't want to do it. So one of the reasons why I was able, and I might be preemptive with this segue, but one of the reasons why I was able to start writing the novels, because I started turning down work. And before you know it, no one is calling you to work. So you sit at home and you like, damn, how am I, like, I don't want to do that reality show. I don't want to do that nonsense. I don't want to do this nonsense. But you keep turning down work, and your numbers decrease as it relates to how many projects you've done. There's some people, you pull their names up and they've done 50 projects, 48 of them were nonsense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so that's what happened, man. Like, you get the calls. Oh, you get the call. I can tell you some stories about some shows that I was pitched, and I'm like, I can't do that, I can't do that.
But that's a scary place to be in, Attika, because, we live in this culture where people just kind of want to grab on and hold on to absolutely anything, even if it doesn't have any type of substance. So where did you get this audacity to tell Hollywood no?
Well, that's interesting, right? Because technically I haven't told Hollywood no, I've told them not that. So, but my goal was never to be like, so you got to understand, there's a difference between a craftsman, a craftswoman, right? And that's what you do, and being a celebrity. Like, celebrity is a job unto itself.
Yes.
Filmmaker, actor, singer, dancer, radio personality, athlete, that's what they do. Celebrity is a job unto it. I never anticipated the Hollywood journey, the Hollywood path. Like, I wanted to just be the best at what I do. And I still don't really anticipate the studio path. I don't look forward to that. Of course, if I get the call to say, yo, we want you to produce or direct Black Panther 2, that I consider it, right? But the reality is that's not what I'm working towards. I'm working towards being the best at what I want to be and what I want to do. So honestly, if this thing works out the way, it's not if, the way my career is working out is I curate it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the film that I'm making in September, if all this stuff clears up, it's a film that, it's an independent film. You know what I'm saying? And my goal is not to, relinquish my autonomy to a system that wants to quell my voice. I'm not interested in that, right? So I want to be able to make my films, distribute them, and continue making them. I don't have a desire to be a director for hire, because if I'm a director now, I don't have a desire to be a director for hire. That doesn't mean I won't be a director for hire if the right job comes along. It's just not my desire. It's not why I ever got in the film business. It's not why I'm working now. I'm not a fan of being a director for hire under the guise of being told what you can and cannot do. Right? So my goal is I want to write my desire in this business is to create, produce, direct projects that matter to me instead of projects that I need to do in order to pay my mortgage and my light bills. You know what I'm saying? And it's a difference between feeding your family and feeding your soul. My goal is trying to mesh the two. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to feed my soul as I feed my family. And it's not always easy. So I don't knock the people who do what they need to do. I'm just working diligently against that paradigm. So I want to create the projects, produce the projects, direct the projects, or hire other directors or hire other producers. I want to create the bank. I want to create the bank so I don't have to go to other people asking them for money, and they can say, yeah, we like your idea, but rather than going with Sanya, we want to go with Kelly Ripa. You know, I'm like, but it's about a girl from Fort Greene, and yeah, but it's a new Fort Greene. Kelly can do it. And if you want this money, you're going to go with Kelly. And I'm like, it's not authentic to the story, though. You know what I'm saying? But that's the stuff that we got to deal with sometimes. And I don't want to deal with that. And that goes back to the whole concept of, being true to your art. That's why it's tough to have people beholden to the social construct of to the construct of social justice, because if it's not true to them, I'd rather them not do it.
So holding on to the construct of social justice and being unapologetic in your work and making sure that you are telling true stories, it does have the potential to kind of make people uncomfortable, which is a great thing through my lens. Now, when it makes people uncomfortable, sometimes they don't go after you. They may go after the ones that you love. So you have a daughter, correct? Mm-hmm. You have a daughter?
Yes, I do.
So in grooming and raising your daughter, how do you prepare or how do you protect her when the world has become uncomfortable?
That's an interesting question. First of all, I live my life in a way that I hope to never ever embarrass her. My goal as a man, as a father, is that when my daughter meets Attika, that she's just as proud of Attika as she is of daddy. Like that's my goal, and I try to walk in that spirit. I raise her in a community, that understands how important she is to the community and to herself. You know what I'm saying? So like, for instance, my daughter is in she just started the Juilliard MAP program, right? So she got accepted in Juilliard on a scholarship. She's the only black child in her whole class. You know what I'm saying? But I've been teaching her this from a long time. Like that comes with a certain level of responsibility. You got to carry yourself a certain way. Like, and I'm not saying you got to carry yourself in a servile way. You got to carry yourself in an obsequious way. No, not at all. You got to go out there and you rock it out, and you rock it out every single time. And if and you stick to your word, and you're in this world. A lot of Asian children are in the program. It's mostly Asian children and some white children, a few, but she's the only black child. But she's been that way, maneuvering in the circles that she's been maneuvering as a musician. So I've been having these conversations with her for a while. And even though her reality is different than mine, because my daughter was born in 2008. You know what that means? That means for the first 8 years of her life, She saw a beautiful black family as the first family of the United States of America. Donald Trump, as a white man being the president of the United States, is foreign to her. That's foreign to her. For the first 8 years of her life, she knew that a black family was the first family of the United States of America, which is completely different from my reality. Right. So I'm raising her to understand how to flow in these circles and how to be unapologetically you, and how to understand that no matter what it is, your father and your mother is side by side with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the dude that be in a PTA meeting and be like, you heard what the teacher said, you got to do what the teacher said. I'm like, wait a minute, teacher, why you feel that way? Let's discuss this. Let's discuss it. You know what I'm saying? Like we have these conversations every time she moves into a new circle or a new sector. We have a conversation. So the main thing that I do is let her know that she's loved, let her know she's protected, let her know we depend on her the same way she depends on us. Like she's teaching me how to be a father. You know what I'm saying? The same way I'm trying to help her be the best young lady she can be. I've never had a child before, so I'm learning how to be a father from her. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is not a one-way street. This is a mutually beneficial relationship. And
so,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I do what I do as much as I can to bolster her self-esteem, to bolster her individuality, to bolster her voice, to let her know that it's necessary. And then, like, I don't have to push the black power thing on her. I don't have to push the red, black, and green thing flag. You don't have to be a flag waver to be true to it, because a lot of people are waving flags that ain't true to it. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm looking to do is make what I believe a part of her core, a part of her soul. So, because I don't necessarily believe in right or wrong. I believe in your truth. And if you stray too far from your truth is when you realize something ain't right. But if your truth is left of my truth, then something ain't right with your truth as it relates to me. And that's what I want her to understand.
Got you. So let's get even more specific, just dealing in this culture where so many people of color, blacks, are being murdered senselessly in the streets. I recently watched a show on the OWN network where they had 100 black men talking to their sons. I'm a parent of a daughter. You're the parent of a daughter as well. Have you prepared your daughter, or have you had the talk about walking through the streets and how to deal with police and making sure that she comes home every single night? Have you had that conversation?
I have not had that conversation, and ironically, my parents never had that conversation with me. My parents never had that conversation with me. I haven't had that conversation with her. My parents taught me self-defense. My parents taught me how to stand up for yourself. My parents taught me the stuff that my father taught me was, I don't care if he has a gun. If you're more well-versed at how to manage the situation, then, his gun can become yours. Like, I was raised completely differently. I never had to talk about, you got to sit down on your hands and bow your knees and bend your head when the police come. I was taught completely differently. And I think we need to raise our children completely differently to deal with the George Zimmermans and the Michael Drakers of the world. And I think, people, this is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening for a long time. And I remember when Amadou Diallo was shot at 41 times, someone spoke to me about it, and I said, they're going to top that because there was no penalty for it. And then they shot at Sean Bell 50 times. And I said, they're going to top that. We're going to watch them kill somebody. And they wound up shooting Oscar Grant handcuffed in the back. And I said, they're going to go even further because there is no recourse. The problem will change when the victims change. Change the victims. You change the problem. Stop being the one. And I know this is not easy for people to understand, and I don't want to just say it in jest so people just think he's saying something that he hasn't thought through. But believe me when I tell you, you can play someone like we're always in a position where we're defending ourselves and playing defense. You change your position in the altercation from an educated perspective, and you stop being the victim. That's when things will change. But we are always the victims in these scenarios. Therefore, the perpetrators and the people who protect and defend the perpetrators do not believe that it's a problem. The only problem is that it's being exposed.
Yeah.
But when 10,000 people, instead of marching downtown and burning up the police precinct, march to Derek Chauvin's house and burn that down, that's when the conversation changes. When you go to his house with his family in it, and 10,000 marching protesters, rioters, looters go to his house and take care of him and his family. When you change the victims, the conversation changes. But the people in power don't see it as problematic enough to consider a change. And that's the issue with when they started painting Black Lives Matter in the streets. To me, that's pacification. To me, that's more of they want to disrespect the president of the United States. That's petty on petty. That's why I say fuck your paint. Do it with ink. Do it with ink. Change the ink on the paper that legislates and dictates what these people are doing is not punishable offenses. Change the ink, because the paint, now they got people taking pictures in front of Black Lives Matter. Life is great. We got our streets painted. Black Lives Matter. They will kill you on Black Lives Matter way.
Right.
And the situation will be the same. That's my issue with it. Change the victims, then the conversation change.
You're absolutely right, Attika. And I just know as a personal story, and just raising my daughter, and she's been right by my side sometimes when I've had situations with police. And I had to pull her to the side and say, I want you to really think about how mommy interacted with the police, because how I interacted with the police is totally different from what the world is telling you how to engage with the police. I'm totally disruptive. And I tell her, because I will never be anyone's victim, and neither will you. So I raised my daughter to a complete understanding of she will never be anyone's victim. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that we have to change our language, because we are not victims at all. But I want to transition real quick, because you have now added a new genre to your diversified portfolio. You are a novelist. So congratulations about that. Welcome to the sisterhood.
Appreciate you.
So, no problem. So let's just talk about your book. It's called Brooklyn Bred, a 90s Brooklyn story. You're from Brooklyn. Well, you're not from Brooklyn. You were raised in Brooklyn.
I'm from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
But you weren't born in Africa? No,
I was born in New York.
All right, so I like even more now. I like even more.
Is that possible?
We're both Brooklyn bred, so that means a lot. We just come with a certain type of swag. But I really want to unpack your book. Tell us all about your latest book.
So, two things. One, my family's from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. When I was 10 years old, my family moved to Liberia, West Africa. And I went to school there until I graduated from high school, and then I came back to college. I touch on some of that in the book, because the book is loosely based on my life. It's a novel, but it's loosely based on my life and stories that I know that I have firsthand information from. And so while I had the downtime, I'm sorry, I gotta just really quickly plug my laptop in. To give me 2 seconds.
No problem at all. So he's going to just join us in a few more moments. Laptops die with this whole remote thing. Everyone is just trying to find their way. But I'm totally excited to learn about this book. I could get, my copy of it. So he's back. Attika, tell us about the book.
Yeah. So I started I started writing in my downtime. Again, like I said, after I started turning down, rejecting some of these projects, I started writing a TV pilot that I thought would be a really good TV pilot. And as I'm writing the pilot, I realized that I have so many scripts written. That the thing about a screenplay is, one, if you don't get it produced, it's like you never wrote it. You know what I'm saying? If you don't get it produced, it's like it never happened. You know. Secondly, if you you can write a 120-page screenplay and you don't get the title of an author. You know, you're just a screenplay writer. You know, so I shifted gears. And I said, instead of writing another pilot, because I wanted to write this show as a TV pilot. And then the other thing is, I've never known a movie or a TV show to be made and then a book be written about it. Right? I've always known there to be a book written and then a movie, a TV show. I've never seen it in the reverse, right? So I said, man, rather than writing another pilot, I need to figure out, you know, how to write a novel. And then I just transitioned as I was writing into turning it into a novel, technically. And I wrote the novel, and I was uncertain about some things. Like I just wanted to get to 100 pages. I said, if I get to 100 pages, it'll be fine. But I was writing. So I wrote the story. My goal was to write the story, beginning, middle, and end. That's it. So I created chapters, moments in my life that I dictated as chapters, and I started writing, and I put different people's names that I know as the characters. And you know, by the time I was done, I had less than 50 pages. I had like 47 pages. So then I spoke to a friend of mine who has written a book before, and he was like, nah, you gotta double space it, and you gotta write it in larger print, you know, and not the 11 size font, single space. So when I went home and I changed the format from Times Roman to Garamond. When I did that, I had over 300 pages.
Wow.
So I said, now I got a book. And then I went in, I edited it, you know, then I started working on formatting it. Then I went and took pictures. I called my man who's a photographer because I knew how I wanted it to look. It's a distinct look. It's a coffee table novel. So it's a novel, but it's landscape. It's not portfolio. You know, it's hardcover with the picture printed on the cover itself. It has gold trimming. Like, it's a beautiful book. So because of that, we decided to sell them as limited. I wanted to sell it wasn't because of that. I wanted to sell limited edition copies of it for a luxury item price. So we started selling the books at $100 each. So I got a certain amount printed. I got 500 printed, and I started selling them at $100 each 2 months ago. We're almost finished now, and it's been an amazing journey. People love the book. They love the aesthetics of it, but then they love the story. They love the writing. And you know, I'm an artist. You know, and as Erykah Badu say, I'm an artist, and I'm sensitive about my shit. I didn't know how they were going to accept it, but I put it out there, and they love it. The people love the book. So now, once this run of the special limited edition is done, then I'm in talks to go to Kindle and then Amazon on that. But Brooklyn Bred is a series. A 90 Brooklyn story is the name of this book. So this book takes place from 92 to 96, that era when I left college to when I went back to college, right? The next book is the prequel, and that would be from 88 to 92, and that's called Brooklyn Bred, but that's campus life, and that's about when I went to college. So yes, indeed. So I'm just saying the names will be changed to protect the guilty.
You said so many things. I need to make sure that I capture some of those talking points that you just mentioned. So I'm just going to start first with the $100 price point. So this is a true story, Attika. I was at a friend's place, and we're just sitting down and we're talking. First friend I had actually visited since this whole quarantine. And she said, Sanya, did you get Attika's book? And I said, I'm going through a lot. Unfortunately, I haven't purchased it yet. And she said, the book is $100, right? I said, what? So I said, no. You're just joking. I said, I'm not even going to find out if that's true until Attika comes on the show. And then a second person came to me and was like, Sanya, Attika's book is $100. And I said, you know what? Instead of me just trying to figure this out, let's just have a candid discussion right here. I said, you know what? I applaud this brother for pricing his book at $100 because I had just finished rereading Dennis Kimbrough's book, and he quoted something from Johnson H. Johnson, who was the founder of Ebony magazine, who mentioned time is money. And he questioned Dennis Kimbrough, why aren't you wealthy? And so often we don't place value on our intellectual property and on our products. And we leave it up to other individuals to define our worth. And once again, going back to the onset of this conversation, the ownership over your narrative and understanding your worth. And if people can't afford the $100 book, oh wow. Oh wow. That's in my opinion. Oh wow. Because you mentioned about who's in your circle, who's adding to your intellectual capital. So the people who understand the price point of $100, that's your intellectual capital right there. Those are the people who reminded you, hey brother, you're doing the damn thing because you were nominated 2 times for an Emmy. So people who don't understand the $100 price point, we're not concerned about them because they're not going to get it anyway. But people who are in zest and in pursuit of viable information and knowing the fabric that you are cut from, they would say, I know that he's going to give us some great stuff. So I know the words on the page will be valued at $100, but damn it, I bet it's worth a lot more. So once again, Attika, I applaud you for standing in your truth and placing value on your property, especially in a culture and climate where people will say, why the hell is that shit so priced so high? So I applaud you, my brother, for doing that.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it was the challenge. The challenge too was, people stopped working. So it was also a situation whereas, like I was torn between whether I was going to move forward with it, whether I was going to hold off on it, because some people want to buy it and they're not working. But right. I decided to push forward because I said I'm gonna do this, and every once in a while you get hit with a curveball, and that doesn't mean you stop what you're doing. You got to go and pursue what you said you was going to pursue. And the book is a beautiful book. I'm gonna get up and grab one for you in a minute so I can show it to you. But it's the flip side to it is for those who want it, who don't see the value, who are not in a position to purchase it right now, because I do understand this is a sensitive time as it relates to finances. It'll be out for you much later on down the line. Yeah, much later on down the line. You won't get a certificate of authenticity. You won't get an individually numbered, hardcover, gold trimmed landscape version of it. You know what I'm saying? This book is not registered as a literary piece. It's registered as a work of art. It doesn't even have an ISBN. You can't find it anywhere. You know what I'm saying? I'm the only person you can find it from. It's not registered. It doesn't have an ISBN number, and you can't skew it. This is individually numbered, like it's a series of artwork. That's why it's sold this way. And my goal, like what I'm committed to doing, see, that's the other thing. I'm not just selling this book for $100 to sell it. There's 2 things. One, I was never a fan of crowdfunding like Kickstarter. I want to make a movie, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. So I say, I got to give something. You got to give something. I got to work and have people invest in something, as opposed to asking everybody, doing the math like, yo, I got 5,000 Facebook followers, 5,000 Instagram followers. That's 10,000 people. If I can get $100 from each, That's foolish math. That's foolish math, right? So I said, I'm gonna create this project, this dope book, and I've created a following over the years, pre-social media. Whether I was doing parties or barbecues or movie premieres or events that I can call people and people will come out. I've established a community pre-social media. Social media just added to it. And I've been writing stories on social media for years, and people follow them. And some people who don't comment because sometimes it's a little controversial will see me in the street and be like, "Yo, I remember that verbatim, and that time you said this, that." So I created a scenario that made me say, if I make this amount and I create the I make it something that people have not really seen before, as in this beautiful coffee table novel, I have the right to sell my intellectual property for that amount. And then the flip side to it is when people tell you how much you're going to get from the majors as a first-time novelist, I'm like, I'll be damned if I give them my book for that. I'll be damned. I'm going to get that myself. I got more than what I was told some people who are already notable people got for their first book. I got that in the first month. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling my book, because it's a situation whereas we give away our autonomy early. And that's why my goal has never been to be a director for hire. My goal has never been that. My goal is to be a creator and the number one benefactor of my creation, and create a system that I can say, we can do it together this way. I can show you how to do it this way. I have people coming at me now because I created my publishing company, and I have people coming at me now that want me to publish their books. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do it, but I've given a lot of people the jewels that I've acquired during the process. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of them things where, people can't tell me that you can write a book, but it ain't worth $100. I'm like, I'm not having this conversation with you. That's you're not the demographic. I'm not trying to convince you to buy this book for me for $100. I'll tell you what, it'll be on Kindle for you. You can read it on your phone one day. It'll be on Kindle for you. I'm not mad at that. And one more thing, I have to make this clear. I have to make this clear. I'm really sensitive to the fact that a lot of people's money is being juggled around right now because it's not what they're used to having. It's been diminished significantly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not taking that for granted. I also know that I have a product to sell, and some people are not in a position to purchase it right now. It will be on paperback at some point. Good.
So, once again, just capturing your talking points, we give up our autonomy straight out the gate. So I'm glad that you captured out the gate. As soon as, the fire gun goes off, it's like, here. I'm just give everything away. But in knowing you over these years, I know that your experiences are riveting. So can you just tell us about one riveting experience or story that's in your book that would compel, someone to purchase it? Give us a riveting story.
So first of all, the book is riveting from beginning to end, from cover to cover. When you get the book, the picture is riveting. Like the picture brings you in, and then when you open and then when you close it, the picture on the back is even doper. The pictures are, I can explain them to you. Let me grab one real quick.
Yes. So Attika's going to be right back. He's going to get his actual book so you can see. It is absolutely beautiful. It really is. Something that you can on your coffee table so that when visitors come over, it's a talking point. You're going to see this book and you're going to say, hey, what's that? So let's take a look. Yeah.
So this is the front cover, and it's a Brooklyn cover, dude on a stoop, and it's Brooklyn black. Brooklyn black. Say what?
Don't forget the Timbs. You got the Timbs on.
No. All of that is intentional. Got the Timbs. Back then in the 90s, they didn't have the Brooklyn Nets, so we have the new blue Yankee on. You know what I'm saying? But it's not a regular old suit. It's a velour because I have some swag. It ain't like a champion black suit. This picture was so dope, but we had to crop it for the cover, so we put it here again. As soon as you open the book, it's right there. You know what I'm saying? This is just a Brooklyn picture, man, on the stoop of a brownstone, my home, and just sitting there thinking, contemplating. The back picture is it's in the middle of the street. The sun is right behind me. I found the light. You know what I'm saying? Some of it started to make sense now. That picture was cropped, and I didn't want it cropped, so we put it right there. You know what I'm saying? We put the whole picture there. We have the gold trimming, and right here we have also each person that buys a limited edition copy also gets a certificate of authenticity. You know what I'm saying? Right there on the back of it, it's numbered, individually numbered. It's signed. It's no different than you buying a high-end luxury bag or watch. They give you a certificate with a number on it, and it's a luxury item. And all of this went into even the letters, the big block letters, Brooklyn Bred, we thought about all of this, I don't think anybody could have designed that book any better. I mean, I could be wrong, but for what it is to me and what it was, this is my first time ever writing a novel, and being a novelist as a young man growing up in the 70s and the 80s, it was a big deal because back then we held novelists to a high degree, a high regard. Now everybody got a blog, and some people don't even know how to spell. They don't know punctuation. They're putting conjunctions behind commas and periods and stuff. Like, how you put comma and? It's like it's one or the other. But you're starting paragraphs with the word because. But this is. And I'm reading articles, and I'm like, did anybody teach these people how to write? But in many cases, they didn't, because now you have access to do the entry point is so low, anybody can do it. So, but when I was growing up, being an author, being a novelist was a big deal. You know what I'm saying? There was a time when, depending on who you was dating, that was question number 3 at your date. What books have you read lately? Or, which authors do you like? And that gave someone insight on who you were. You know what I'm saying? It would come up at dinner gatherings, you with a bunch of friends. And it was like, yo, have y'all read this book? Well, I'm reading so-and-so. I'm reading so-and-so. And it was a thing because we took pride in our authors. Our authors were our griots, and they told stories that, that we linked to. And some people had series of novels when you were a little girl or a little boy that you read. And I held that to a high standard and a high regard. This ain't me just writing a book. It's like when I put that /author on my name, every time I smile, /author or novelist. And I took this book seriously, and I don't even know if any organization, any person could have designed a better cover than that. I love it. I love it. And for someone who is as sensitive about their work, I haven't made a movie that I love yet.
No,
not at all. Okay.
Well, let's pause there, but I do want to address that point. But just going back to some things that you said, where back in the day, authors and novelists were held in much higher regard. And I just had this visual in my head of Zora Neale Hurston, Maya Angelou, Mr. Baldwin, just sitting around the table in Harlem and talking about their writings, the Harlem Renaissance. They were held with such high regard. And I remember when I penned my first novel, I put myself visually as if I was seated at the table with these amazing Black authors, because I wanted to kind of duplicate or embody the same type of experience where they kind of spoke through me and allowed the words and the experience to kind of funnel through my pen onto the piece of paper. So I'm glad that you captured that. But going back to the visual of your book, what was equally important to me, you sitting on the stoop in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. I come from that era and that generation where we sat on the stoop with our friends, where we sat on the stoop with our families, and we, communicated with our next door neighbors. And I think that essence is kind of gone. And you see this whole ushering in of gentrification. So I'm glad that you captured an era. And I don't know if, you knew that you were speaking to people who grew up in Brooklyn and who, sat on the stoops of their brownstone. But you really captured and spoke to an era. So once again, it's innately in you. The intentionality that you have to capture movements, not just isolated experiences, but you capture movements. And I think that is so, so important, Attika. So let's transition into, once again, owning your work, self-publishing. That has become, it's gaining momentum. A lot more people are exploring that route so that they don't give up their autonomy. Did you have any second thought about self-publishing and rather going to a traditional publishing house?
Initially, when I decided to write the book, I started to discuss with other people that I know who have traversed this terrain before me. And in all of the conversations, I would just reach out. I must have called like 8 authors and got their opinions about, I even called you, right?
Yes,
we spoke about it. Yeah. And I got their opinions about self-publishing. I got their opinions about going with a major and things of that nature. And the more I listened to it, the more I realized that going with a major I'm not a fan of going to majors. I'm a fan of making majors come to you. Like, and I got to take it back. Like, I'm not a fan of going to Hollywood, but I'm not opposed to directing a studio film. But at that point, they will have come to me, because when you go to them, your position is a little more inferior than it is than when they seek you out. Mm-hmm. So that's not to say I'll never go with a major. That's not to say I'll never do a Hollywood film. That's to say that the work that I'm doing right now, I value it to the point where I don't want to take what I consider your new edition contract. I don't want a new edition contract. I want a Master P contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want one of them joints, you know what I'm saying? Where I'm the artist. I create this. I produce it. Look, I can creatively direct the artwork. You know what I'm saying? I can creatively produce the product. Why should I relinquish my autonomy? All I need you for is distribution, right? And depending on what the split is on that distribution, I may not need you.
Right.
Depending on what you try to take from me on that distribution, depending on the deal and the negotiations of so going with a self, and then it doesn't take much to create a business, whatever you want, a S Corp, a LLC, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, LLP, it doesn't take much. You can even do a DBA and do business as. It doesn't take much. You cross your T's, you dot your I's. We're giving you know what we also pay for? We pay for our ignorance. Yeah. We pay for our ignorance, because it doesn't really take much to get out there and do this yourself. It's just like some people don't have the network that I have, or some people's projections for sales may be much higher than mine, So if your projections for sales is 10, 20,000, then by all means, go with someone who has the platform. But if you reduce your projections and raise your price, you can hit the mark.
Right.
You can hit the mark. You know what I'm saying? If I sell 50,000, if I sell 5,000 books at $10 each, it's the same if I sell 500 books at $100 each. You know what I'm saying? True. So I think you got to manage your own situation, and going with a publisher wasn't outside of going with a publisher, any other. I said major, but that's to assume a major wanted my book. But going with anybody to me was me just being lazy and not doing the work. Once I decided to do the work, I was like, I'm not paying anybody for the things that I can do. And the other thing that I really must say is my job my commitment to the people who bought a limited edition is to keep going. The more I go, the more value is added to that limited edition. If I stop right now, you just bought a book for $100. But if when I keep going and my you know, my accolades build and the notoriety build, then your limited edition becomes valuable. And because you purchased a limited edition, I feel like it's incumbent upon me to keep going, to add value and add equity to your purchase. And that's that, you know, it's all a part of it. Like you can't remove one link of the chain that pulls, because without one of those links, it wouldn't have worked, right? So it's all a part of it. And that's part of my commitment to the craft. That's part of my commitment to the customers. That's part of my commitment to myself, because going with a publisher and somebody throwing you $10,000 and you taking that and then saying, you know, I'm good because my book is at so-and-so company, that's not what I'm interested in.
Right. So I love the fact that you really have a commitment to your craft, the people who purchased your book, and also yourself. And as you were saying that, it reminded me of a conversation that I had with, once again, Dennis Kimbrough. I think that he's absolutely amazing. And he gave me a secret to wealthy individuals. And he said, wealthy individuals will keep pounding at their craft over and over and over again, because that pressure and that pounding of the craft will eventually cause it to open up and to enlarge. So I'm glad that you dropped that tool so that I can, you know, kind of expand on it so that people understand that you got to keep at it. You got to keep at it. So in keeping at it, Attika, when can we expect the second round of your book?
Well, I have another book being illustrated right now. That's not the second iteration of Brooklyn Bred, but I've accumulated some stories over the years called At True Brooklyn Stories. And it's something that I've written on social media. I've accumulated those stories, and I have an artist doing illustrations to the stories. So that's the next book in queue for At the Top Publishing. Shortly after that, chances are I'm looking at like the top of next year, like mid next year, around the same time next year. Hopefully that my second iteration of Brooklyn Bred will be out. You know, but in between that time, like I said, I have the second book, At True Brooklyn Stories, coming out as soon as the illustrations is a tough part, because most of the stories are already written. But I also have a film that I'm in development of that I plan to produce and direct in September in Brooklyn. So, you know, I'm working. In the meantime, I've also produced and did the voice for a documentary on the pandemic, a mini documentary, and some other smaller projects. I'm constantly trying to create ways to stay busy. And so those are the two big things. The second book, At True Brooklyn Stories, and then the film that I'm in development of, that I'm going to be producing and directing, that I wrote. And then I'll probably take some time to spend with my family. And after that, I'll get back to writing, but I want to have the next book done. All right, so the goal was to have this launch for my birthday, which is May 31st. So I wanted to have the book launch, and I wanted the film to be what we call wrapped. I wanted to wrap up production on the film so I could, I believe in having something to celebrate, not just throwing a party to have a party. So I would have been able to celebrate my birthday, have the book out, and also have people buy the book at the time. I also had some apparel that I got created that I was going to sell at the launch. And also, like, this is the first page of the book. This is the first page when you open the book right here. Like, literally, this is the first thing you see right here.
That's dope.
Right? No, right here. I'm sorry. And this is where your book is numbered and personalized, but this is the first page of the book. I put it there. So I had some apparel that I was getting done, that I was putting out, and so I had a lot of stuff that I was going to launch at my birthday. So next year's birthday, I want to have something to launch as well. So I want to have the books hopefully the film will be able to sell them by then, because if we finish them by September, we'll probably make the festival run and be able to. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do, but the goal is to have something for my birthday, which is May 31st. So I'm out here working, Sanya.
I see, but I don't even know if you realize how I finesse that question, because I hate to ask my guests what's next. Because why can't we just live in the moment? But I'm glad that you kind of caught the baton and just gave us what you're currently working on and what you envision for yourself for 2021. Yeah, this 2020, I'm so over it. But I'm glad to see the evolution, and you are thoughtfully processing what that evolution will be like. But you also mentioned your social media. You really do pen some very expressive stories on social media, on your Facebook page. So I really encourage everyone to continue following you on social media so that they can really get to know who you are, and that when they come out with the second release of your book that will be available on Kindle and Amazon, that they are more compelled to purchase the book because they know that it will be filled with inspiring and riveting and thought-provoking words. So talking about your social media, how can my listeners and my viewers follow you?
Well, I'm getting better with Instagram. I'm not really an Instagram guy, but I'm getting better. And everything on me, everything is Attika J Torrence. So if you want to buy the book, my email is attikajtorrence@gmail.com. My Facebook is Attika J Torrence. My Instagram is Attika J Torrence. My website is www.attikajtorrence.com. So anyway, and that's ATTIKAJTORRENCE. That's I'm Googleable. Like I can't run. If I was a John Smith, maybe I could run. If I was, but I can't run. I'm Attika J Torrence. And yeah, man, I'd appreciate all the love, and if anyone wants to buy a copy of the book, I have some left, and I hope that I won't have any left very soon, because I know we're moving quickly. Like the books, like I'm gonna tell you what, Sanya, I from the first Facebook post, I have not stopped selling books, and then like 2 weeks ago, I kind of slowed down enough to start sending text messages. Like, hey, I'm not sure if you know, but I just wrote a novel. I would appreciate your support, yada, yada, yada. But I wasn't able to do that for 2 months because I was every day I'm signing books, I'm packaging books. I have books to mail out right here. I have all my bubble wrap packaging books right here. I have envelopes right here. Like I have it. So you sign them and you personalize them as much as you possibly can. Like if I was signing a book to you, I might do something that's a little different than I would do for someone else. And if I don't know you, I'll just write something nice to it. But it's not just like sign my name and that's it, right? So I'm signing them, I'm packaging them, I'm putting them in the envelopes, I'm taking them to the post office, I'm shipping them out, and then I'm managing the 1 or 2 people who have had questions because, with the post office staff reduction, their reduction in quality is going. I mean, they had a reduction in quality with their staff reductions, and so some books sit a little longer than others. But fortunately, everybody has received them, and that's with everybody. That's FedEx, that's UPS. I checked them all out. So because of staff reductions, because of COVID, these new COVID guidelines, a certain amount of people being in the room at a certain time, certain quality in business have reduced. But people are getting their books, man, and I'm really, really honored that my art is accepted this way. And I'm looking forward to what the future holds, man, because I got a lot of stuff and a lot of stories to tell. And people like it.
But just to talk about, even though the mail system is slow, I've spoken to a few people who purchased your book, and they told me once they received the book, the personal attention and the care You talked about, not only just, signing your books, but you also give personalized messages where people who open your book, they feel as if you sent this and you wrote this directly to them and for them. So that's an added bonus because people always want to feel a part of, this experience. And you've done an amazing job making sure that you include your readers in your experience. Attika, I thank you so much for blessing my platform and giving us, things that we can think about, things that we can incorporate into our personal lives and our professional lives, and how do we navigate this whole socially unjust system. But once again, please give us your website, because I definitely want to encourage everyone to go out there and purchase that book. What's your website one last time? AttikAJTorrence.com
is my website. There you have it. And there's a contact page in the menu at Attika J. Torrence.
Got you. Attika, thank you so much. You have an amazing day, and I'll talk with you later on.
Thank you, Sanya. And a personal message from me to you. I wish you and your family very well.
I received that. Thank you so much. Take care.
You're welcome. All right. Later.
So, there you have it. Joined by my friend and also my professional colleague, Attika J. Torrence. Phenomenal, exceptional filmmaker, storyteller, novelist, just an overall great person. I really encourage all of you to share this conversation with your network. These are the things that we must do in order to not become victims to anything, whether it is on the job, whether it is encountering the police, whether it is giving away your autonomy to whomever or whatever. Please share this content. Make sure that you follow Sanya on Air on all major streaming platforms: Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Buzzsprout. You can also go to my website, www.sanyaonair.com, so that you can catch all past shows and you can look forward to my upcoming guest. I thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Sanya on Air. And also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Sanya_on-air. This has been another amazing edition of Sanya on Air, and I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Smooches, dolls.